Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. Wang Dong's expression had changed into one of astonishment. It really is worthy of being called the mysterious water pill. It's actually increased your soul force by almost 2 ranks in a single night. You're at the peak of the 12th rank now, only a step away from the 13th rank. Hui Yuhao's eyes went wide. Are you telling the truth? What is this mysterious water pill? Wang Dong snatched the testing soul tool back from Hui Yuhao and humphed. Then, he said, my soul tool is extremely accurate when testing people's soul ranks. Besides, I don't benefit from lying to you. Speaking of which, you should thank Senior Bei Bei. What sort of relationship do you have with him? He actually just casually slipped you a mysterious water pill that's worth 10,000 gold when you were unconscious. I'm very skeptical as whether or not he gave you the right pill. What Wang Dong didn't know was that his analogy had actually struck the truth. Hui Yuhao's innate soul force was actually the first rank. However, Hui Yuhao clearly sensed that the feeling of shedding one's bones he'd felt after taking the mysterious water pill definitely wasn't just as simple as a mere 1 rank increase in his innate soul force. In fact, his cultivation speed had almost quadrupled. Although he wasn't comparable to the likes of Wang Dong and Bei Bei, who were genius soul masters, he'd become equivalent to an ordinary soul master at least. Cultivation wouldn't be as difficult as it had been in the past for him anymore. Eldest senior brother. Hui Yuhao couldn't help but want to shed a few tears. It was his eldest senior brother who'd given him the mysterious water pill, something that was worth 10,000 gold. This friendship given to him by Bei Bei was deeply engraved into his heart. Hui Yuhao's luck was truly good. Wang Dong's explanation of the mysterious water pill wasn't incorrect at all. Under normal circumstances, the increase provided by the mysterious water pill would be just as he'd described. However, Hui Yuhao had taken the mysterious water pill at the perfect moment. After yesterday's bitter training, his body had received enough tempering that it broke through its limits. He'd essentially completed a thorough warm-up before he consumed the mysterious water pill. Furthermore, his comprehension towards the mysterious heaven technique had caused the technique to permeate throughout his passageways, allowing it to reside in a sort of warm, nourishing state. The overuse of Hui Yuhao's consciousness had caused him to sink into a comatose state. Due to this, when he absorbed the mysterious water pill, he hadn't been able to deliberately control the efficacy of the mysterious water pill, allowing it to evenly spread throughout his body. The nourishing effect brought about by the mysterious water pill was completely received by his body. There was another important point. The mysterious water pill was a water-type medicinal pill, while his second martial soul that had been bestowed to him by the Sky Dream Iceworm was an ice-type one. Ice was, in and of itself, another state of water, which caused his absorption of the mysterious water pill to be even more fruitful. The mysterious water pill could be said to have caused an all-around upgrade to Hui Yuhao's body, which was the reason why he'd experienced such a huge change. This would have enormous benefits towards his future cultivation, and even his purple demon eyes had evolved. The purple demon eyes had 4 major realms: surveillance, totality, mustard seed, and boundlessness. When Hui Yuhao used his spirit eyes to cultivate the purple demon eyes, he basically achieved twice the effects while putting in half the work. As the mysterious water pill had increased his soul force, it had also simultaneously spurred on the Sky Dream Iceworm's origin energy. Thus, when he'd previously cultivated the purple demon eyes, the origin energy had created a siphoning effect towards the purple chi on the horizon, thereby allowing Hui Yuhao's purple demon eyes to directly leap into the totality realm from the perlustration realm. In terms of cultivation speed for the purple demon eyes, he could even be said to be the fastest person in all of history. He'd even exceeded the founder of the Tang sect, Tang San. Hui Yuhao didn't know this yet, but the advancement of his purple demon eyes had caused a large increase in his ability to control spiritual-type skills. When he activated soul skills in the future, his soul force consumption would be substantially lessened. As he looked at Hui Yuhao's red eyes and slightly blank appearance, Wang Dong patted him on the shoulder and said, "Let's go and get some breakfast. I want to eat double today." Hui Yuhao laughed. "Sure. You can even eat quadruple if you want today." Wang Dong eyes widened. "You're the pig here. Once he spoke, the two couldn't help but break into laughter. Their embarrassment from last night had disappeared. At such a simple age, the two still had pure hearts. Hui Yuhao didn't forget to dig out the golden spirit coin from the grill that he'd earned from yesterday's roasted fish before following Tang Ya to see Bei Bei and Shusansha compete. When Hui Yuhao and Wang Dong arrived at the dining hall, they secretly felt a little rich and imposing. The breakfast that they had was especially sumptuous and greatly replenished their bodies' needs. They were the earliest to arrive at the dining hall, and even by the time they'd finished eating, not many students had arrived. There's still a while till we have to be in class. Let's return to the dorm room. Hui Yuhao patted his satisfied belly and stretched his body for a while with a content look on his face. Ever since he arrived at Shrek Academy, he'd gradually become cheerful. He finally had friends here, but even more so, he had teacher Xiao Ya and his eldest senior brother Bei Bei who both cared about him. This was worlds better compared to the previous kind of atmosphere he'd experienced when he was in the Duke's mansion, where everything was ice cold. Wang Dong replied, "Save it. You're just gonna go back and cultivate again anyway. Bowstrings that have been stretched too tightly will break, you know. If you need to relax, then you should just relax. Let's take a walk by Sea God Lake and relax for a while. The mysterious water pill just helped you increase your cultivation by quite a bit. You shouldn't care about this short moment of relaxation." "All right then." Hui Yuhao happily agreed. Ever since entering the academy a few days ago, he still had yet to visit Sea God Lake. Moreover, it really was almost time for them to head to class. It would be a good idea if he took the chance to take a walk too. The two left the dining hall and cut through the school building for new students as they headed to the east along the south side of Shrek Plaza. Soon afterwards, they arrived at the alley to the lakeside. As they passed through the forest next to the alley, Sea God Lake, with its gleaming waves that were reflected in the sunlight, and its water that was both clear and crystalline, was presented before their eyes. A gust of wind that contained a gentle mist mixed with fresh air buffeted them. Even though Sea God Lake was a man-made lake, the water that it held was extremely clear. The azure lake was blue to the point that its surface was both pure and deep, yet so blue that it was also tender, calm, and graceful. A slight ripple, that looked like the luminous eyes of a young lady, was also full of life, that undulated on the surface of the lake and looked like a blue brocade. The lake reflected an inverted image of the blue sky and white clouds, as well as the trees that lined the lakeside. So beautiful. Wang Dong couldn't help but inhale deeply, physically exerting himself as he stretched his body. When he stretched his body, his shirt was inevitably pulled up, revealing his perfectly rounded and perky butt. Hui Yuhao absolutely didn't deliberately focus his attention on it, but an unintentional look was enough to remind him of the shining patch of white that he'd seen yesterday. He turned his head away, feeling somewhat embarrassed, and looked far out into the distance across Sea God Lake. Sea God Lake occupied an extremely wide area, perhaps it was even larger than the main Shrek Academy campus that was to the west of Shrek Plaza. There was even a layer of fog atop the water's surface in the distance. After Hui Yuhao's purple demon eyes had evolved, the sight of his spirit eyes had substantially increased once again. Even though he hadn't poured soul power into his spirit eyes to activate them, Hui Yuhao could still see far into the distance. He faintly saw what seemed to be houses amidst the mist that rested upon the surface of the lake in the distance. He couldn't help but think that the inner courtyard was probably at that end of the lake, as he'd associated those houses with Xiao Ya and Bei Bei's description. If such an outstanding soul master like his eldest senior brother was only able to study in the outer courtyard, then how strong would the upperclassmen from the inner courtyard be? At the exact moment that Hui Yuhao was preoccupied with his thoughts, he suddenly saw what appeared to be a red dot appear in the mist above the lake. "What is it?" Wang Dong asked. Hui Yuhao pointed in the direction that he was looking. "Look, there seems to be some sort of red dot over there." Wang Dong followed where Hui Yuhao's finger was pointing, and looked in the direction that he was pointing. However, all he saw was a sea of mist. "Where?" He was questioning Hui Yuhao's words one moment, when in the next moment, he opened his eyes wide and stared. He'd also seen the so-called red dot that Hui Yuhao had mentioned. However, it wasn't some red dot. It was clearly a red-colored figure that was currently running on the surface of the water at an astonishing speed. In addition to that, looking closely at the figure, it actually seemed to be rushing in their direction. Hu Yuhao and Wang Dong both exchanged a glance before simultaneously crying out in surprise, an upperclassman from the inner courtyard. The red figure's speed was extremely shocking. In just a short period of time, it had already reached the center of the lake. Every time the tips of his toes briefly touched the surface of the lake, he'd create a ripple that spread out across the lake. However, he was also continuously speeding up with the help of that slight buoyancy from the lake, rapidly flying forwards like a red cloud. As the figure got closer, Hu Yuhao was also able to see it even better. The red color wasn't only due to the fact that the clothes on its body were red in color, but even its hair was a blood-red color. The figure was slender, yet was emitting a sort of biting fierceness from its whole body, just like a frightening soul beast. The figure was wearing a mask that was also similarly red in color, even its eyes were blood-red. The air surrounding its body seemed to be distorting slightly. The mist would even somewhat dissipate beneath his feet wherever he passed. This senior seems to be very strong. Look, he can even run on the surface of the water without releasing his martial soul. Wang Dong said to Hu Yuhao with an excited look on his face, as per his analysis of the situation. Hu Yuhao's cultivation wasn't as good as his, but his perception was far more acute. Wang Dong, why do I feel that something isn't right? The red figure was truly too fast. In the period that they'd been conversing with each other, the figure had already approached the 100-meter radius of the shore. A frightening surge of heat engulfed them in that instant. Hu Yuhao and Wang Dong had astonished looks enter their eyes at the same time, because they simultaneously felt that an indescribably wild aura had exploded from that senior's body. It definitely wasn't an aura that should appear from a normal person. With a swish, azure wings had spread out from Wang Dong's back. He grabbed a hold of Hu Yuhao in an attempt to take flight. However, that red figure had already gotten close to them in the short span of Wang Dong's movements. The terrifying heat burst forth in an instant, causing both Wang Dong and Hu Yuhao to feel as though they'd been enveloped by a sea of fire. The wings on Wang Dong's back crumpled in an instant, making it so that he could no longer fly. The duo fell to the ground at the same time. All of the vegetation in an area 10 meters around the figure had turned burnt yellow in an instant. The difference in their cultivations was really too great. Wang Dong still wanted to try to release his soul skill, but just as he activated his soul force, he immediately sustained an attack from that terrifying heat. With a dull groan, he immediately lost consciousness. Hu Yuhao's cultivation was inferior to Wang Dong's, but one mustn't forget that he still had an ice-type martial soul that had yet to take form. Once Hu Yuhao was subjected to the intense stimulation from the external heat, his ice attribute martial soul was immediately awakened. However, his soul force that was only at the peak of the 12th rank was thoroughly consumed by the external heat in just a single second. Moreover, that red figure had already swatted a large hand in his direction. The temperature of his surroundings was already so frightening. If he really was hit, wouldn't he die very tragically? The last thing that Hu Yuhao could do was launch a spirit shock. However, the disparity between him and his opponent was too great. His spirit shock dissipated in the heat before it could even charge through that layer of strong fire attribute aura. At this rate, he was going to vanish in a puff of smoke and ashes under that huge, scorching hot palm. It was at this exact moment that the sight before Hu Yuhao's eyes became a field of white, and everything in his surroundings became a blur. Am I dead? Am I going to die like this? In this moment, when death was approaching, the feeling that he had in his heart wasn't unwillingness. Everything that had happened had really been too sudden. Hence, he was only at a loss at the moment. The scene before his eyes suddenly became clear. Hu Yuhao saw a strange scene. He saw himself. If Wang Dong was still awake now, right, he'd have seen an incomparably shocking scene. In the moment that Hu Yuhao was about to be engulfed by that flaming hand, the color of his eyes suddenly changed. His dark blue eyes, which had been twinkling with a faint golden light, suddenly became as white as twinkling frost in an instant. A gust of extraordinarily cold air suddenly spread outwards from Hu Yuhao's body. He actually managed to forcibly disperse all of the heat coming from the figure in front of him. The fiery figure only let out a dull groan before curling up as they collapsed to the ground. When Hu Yuhao was utilizing his spirit eyes, the soul ring that rose up from beneath his feet was white. However, at this moment, his normally white soul ring had actually turned an incomparably brilliant golden color. A glaring golden light sparkled off of it, Just like the morning sun was rising up from beneath his feet, with Hu Yuhao's body as the core, the area around him and 100-meter diameter of him instantly turned into a world of ice and snow. Even his opponent's spiritual sea was frozen. The red figure seemed to be shivering violently, as the terrifying, intimidating aura it let off was continuously condensed by the cold. Hu Yuhao slowly raised his right arm. It wasn't known when his right hand's index finger had turned ice blue, nor when his eyes had begun to shine with a white light. A gloomy voice immediately rang out. You dare to touch the person that this brother has chosen, and dare to disturb this brother's sleep. Go and die. Hu Yuhao pointed forwards with his index finger, causing an icy blue ray of light to suddenly flash in the sky, headed straight for the red figure. The temperature surrounding the red figure plummeted, as a result of the extremely chilling feeling Hu Yuhao was emitting. Perhaps because it felt danger approaching it, the red figure struggled violently. Closely following that, the loud and clear cry of a phoenix abruptly rang out. An enormous phoenix floated up from beneath the figure, along with 6 soul rings, 2 yellow, 2 purple and 2 black. Soul Emperor rank. Among the 6 soul rings, the 2nd, 3rd, and 6th soul rings all shone at the same time. The flame behind the figure turned dark red almost instantly. A thread of fire that was as thin as a finger was spouted from the phoenix's mouth, colliding with the ice blue light that had been shot out of Hu Yuhao's index finger. A series of strange sounds rang out. The thread of fire collapsed almost instantly. The enormous phoenix abruptly pounced forwards, using its huge body to shield the red figure from the front. The fiery red figure rolled back along with the violent cry of the fire phoenix, and, with an icy blue layer covering them from head to toe, they immediately dropped straight into Sea God Lake in the distance. Hu Yuhao was just about to pursue and attack them, but halted his steps for a moment. The sound that had previously rung out rang once more. How annoying, someone else came. This small guy's physical fitness has improved very quickly. It seems that I can give him a bit more power already. Alright, I'm fleeing. The golden soul ring rapidly dulled back to a white soul ring and disappeared. All of the coldness in Hu Yuhao's surroundings also disappeared seemingly instantly. The water in the lake rapidly reverted back to its original state. Hu Yuhao's white eyes that had been emitting a strong chill reverted back to normal. Finally, his body went limp, causing him to fall to the ground in exhaustion. Sea God Lake had just had frightening soul force fluctuations a moment ago, but tranquility had already been completely restored. Only Hu Yuhao and Wang Dong were left, collapsed and unconscious by the shore. This is bad. Students from the outer courtyard were injured. A white-clothed old man was the one leading the group. He suddenly strode over in mid-air, and as if he'd just teleported through space, arrived at Hu Yuhao and Wang Dong's side. He extended both his hands, and both of their bodies immediately floated upwards. Fortunately, it seems that they've only fainted. They haven't sustained any injuries. Teacher Li, please provide them with some medical treatment. Yes. Another white-clothed middle-aged person hastily stepped forwards, taking charge of Hu Yuhao and Wang Dong. If Hu Yuhao and Wang Dong were still conscious, they would have immediately recognized this teacher Li As, the soul sage-ranked master, who'd utilized his martial soul, the Tree of Life, on them yesterday, and had conducted a full-scale recovery on the entire class. His soul rings quickly rose up, and hoops of green light revolved around Hu Yuhao and Wang Dong's bodies, quietly infiltrating their bodies. A miraculous scene appeared. The wilted plants in their surroundings had actually started to rapidly recover at an astonishing speed. One could also faintly see that the large-scale vegetation that surrounded the Sea God Lake was emitting faint green rays of light. These faint green rays of light were surging towards Hu Yuhao and Wang Dong's bodies, slowly soaking into them. Xiao Dao is over here. The white-clothed old man heaved a sigh of relief and said, "Thank goodness we didn't make a serious mistake." It seems that Xiao Dao still managed to retain some of her consciousness. Teacher Li, send these 2 students back and repeatedly warn them to forget what they saw. If they divulge this matter to others, they'll be expelled. Give them a high grade as compensation. We're heading back. The last 3 words were directed towards the others. He carried the woman clad in red, and as his silhouette flickered, he turned into a ray of white light as he headed towards the depths of Sea God Lake. In the moment that Hu Yuhao fainted and fell to the ground, he was no longer able to see anything on the outside with his consciousness. Naturally, he also didn't know what happened after he fainted either. You managed to disturb elder brother's sleep so quickly. How annoying. The Sky Dream Iceworm's voice resounded in Hui Yuhao's spiritual sea. Hui Yuhao dazedly asked, Brother Sky Dream, you are the one who made that move just now. The Sky Dream Iceworm replied, of course it was this brother who did it. If not, you would have already become a dried-up, baked person. That person's fire attribute is truly very strong. She actually possesses the blood of a phoenix god beast. If not, this brother's finger would have annihilated her. But, no matter. She should have lost consciousness already. That flame of hers seems to be slightly demonic. However, this brother didn't eat all that 10,000-year ice pith for nothing. Her powers are still far from comparable to mine. Little Yuhao, your cultivation has been very successful. Your physical fitness has increased significantly. The first seal of the 10 seals that I left in your body has already been cracked open. Really? Hui Yuhao was overjoyed. Ever since he'd come to Shrek Academy, he'd started to understand how insignificant he was. After meeting so many experts, his thirst for strength had grown even greater. However, due to his poor talent, he could only secretly work even harder. Now, even the Sky Dream Iceworm had praised him, so how could he not be happy? The Sky Dream Iceworm spoke with a very depressed tone. However, this brother has used some of his origin energy. This is my origin consciousness, which can also be considered the intelligence that's been added onto your soul ring. It's because of this that I was able to protect your body before using my power. Furthermore, after that attack, your body won't be able to be possessed by me for at least a year. You'll have to be extremely careful. If you meet another undefeatable enemy like this one, we're both finished. Okay, I won't tarry on any longer. I'm going to keep sleeping. You have to quickly work harder. Once you've gotten a second soul ring, you won't have to constantly bother this brother anymore. The Sky Dream Iceworm was always rushed whenever he appeared. Hui Yuhao had originally planned to ask him a few questions regarding the control of his soul skills, but the Sky Dream Iceworm already fallen back into a deep sleep, and everything surrounding him had turned dark. Wang Dong was the first one to wake up. When he opened his eyes, he saw a white-clothed middle-aged man in front of him. However, before he could speak, Hui Yuhao, who was to his side, let out a muffled groan and slowly opened his eyes. Because he wasn't as clear as Hui Yuhao regarding the general situation, Wang Dong's mind was blank. He angrily said, just what's going on? What was that monster earlier? The white-clothed middle-aged man indifferently replied, you're both fine now. About the thing that you guys just saw, please forget about it. If you don't, you'll be expelled from the academy. I'll give you 2 these as compensation. I believe that you're both smart people. As he spoke, he threw 2 green objects towards Hui Yuhao and Wang Dong. The 2 subconsciously raised their hands to catch them. At the same time, the white-clothed middle-aged man had already risen up into the sky and was flying towards Sea God Lake. Go to class. Remember, it's best that you forget everything you just saw. Hui Yuhao and Wang Dong looked at each other. They were left in a daze for quite a while. Hui Yuhao, what do you think's going on? Wang Dong asked him in a low voice. Hui Yuhao shook his head. I don't know. It seems like we've come across a madman. Wang Dong lowered his head to see what the green object in his hand was, and immediately became stunned. Following that, his face became filled with a happy expression. Whoa, we've struck gold. It's a soul advancement pill. It's actually a soul advancement pill. Hui Yuhao looked towards the green lump in his hand with puzzlement. It was a green pill that was about the size of a walnut, and it was releasing a faint fragrant odor. Its surface was dark green in color, and there seemed to be a faint halo of light circulating within it. It was sparkling and translucent, and was also filled with an aura of life. What's a soul advancement pill? Is it a type of pill, like the mysterious water pill? Wang Dong let out a cunning laugh and replied, I'm not telling. Beg me. After he finished his sentence, he turned around and ran towards the freshman's school building. Hui Yuhao was left speechless. After carefully putting the soul advancement pill into his 24 moonlit bridges, he chased after Wang Dong. While running, he shouted, if you don't tell me, I'll just ask my eldest senior brother. He definitely knows what it does. If you tell me now, I'll treat you to lunch. Wang Dong slowed down and waited for him to catch up. Then, I'll be eating something tasty. Hui Yuhao took out all of his savings and said, I'm a homeless orphan anyway. These are all of my savings, do whatever you want with them. Wang Dong was stunned for a moment. You're an orphan? Hui Yuhao nodded his head. Wang Dong spoke again, the reason that you don't even have any bedding on your bed, isn't it because you just want to assiduously cultivate? Isn't it because you're simply not willing to spend money on some bedding? Hui Yuhao replied, it's because I feel that having some money left to eat with is more important than buying bedding. The food in the canteen is rather expensive after all. Wang Dong unwittingly stopped, causing Hui Yuhao to naturally stop along with him. What are you doing? It's almost time for class. We need to hurry up. Wang Dong pursed his lips tightly and stared at Hui Yuhao. Hui Yuhao, who was currently being stared at, felt goosebumps rise on his back. What's happened to you? Was your brain fried by that guy earlier? Wang Dong inhaled deeply and exhaled slowly. Hui Yuhao, I'm sorry. I didn't know that you were an orphan. I shouldn't have bullied you. Hui Yuhao chuckled and replied, your bullying didn't work, did it? Wang Dong shook his head and said, I don't know. I've never heard of anyone willing to eat it at the 12th rank. No matter how highly ranked an auction is, this pill is always considered a good thing. Moreover, very few people will choose to sell it. Supposedly, only an extremely small number of plant-type soul masters can refine it, and a year's supply won't exceed 20. This time, we really had some crappy luck. It seems that the school is fair, as even though that fellow threatened our lives, we still got something this good. Unlike Wang Dong, who was praising the school for giving them the pill, Hui Yuhao's mood wasn't too happy. This was because he clearly knew how he and Wang Dong would have been charcoal right now, were it not for the existence of the Sky Dream Iceworm. Even if they were to receive a pill then, it wouldn't be of any use to them. Then, when is the best time to eat it, in your opinion? Wang Dong replied, obviously, when we get back to our dorm tonight. You can't just put a good thing like this away. Furthermore, it's best to increase your cultivation earlier, so that you can reach rank 30 earlier. If I'd had a third soul ring today, I wouldn't have been so passive, at the very least. There wouldn't have been any problems with me flying into the air with you either. Hui Yuhao thought about it for a while, before deciding to eat the soul advancement pill once he got back home tonight. The stronger the soul force he supplied his mysterious heaven skill with, the stronger its nourishing effect would be on his passageways. Hence, increasing his soul force was naturally a good thing for him. However, he didn't know how great an increase in soul force the soul advancement pill would provide. The soul force needed for one to advance to the 31st rank from the 30th rank, could increase his soul force by 2, or even 3 ranks, at the very minimum. If that was the case, his cultivation would end up around the 15th rank, which meant that it'd be in accordance with the minimum cultivation level normally needed to enter Shrek Academy. When his train of thought reached this point, Hui Yuhao immediately felt a wave of passion surge through his heart. Even though he didn't feel inferior his classmates, he was still filled with a sense of danger. With his original level of talent, the first round of assessments for freshmen would have been extremely hard for him to pass. However, his large increase in cultivation during the past 2 days had given him some hope. No matter what, he had to stay in Shrek Academy. Compared to Juyi's class yesterday, today's classes were at least to the students simply too relaxed. Both their morning and afternoon classes were on theory. The morning class was about the classification of martial souls, while the afternoon class was about distinguishing a soul beast's age. Since most of the students were familiar with what was being covered in the 2 classes already, they didn't pay them much attention. However, Hui Yuhao was different, he listened to the teacher with rapt attention. What he lacked wasn't just talent and cultivation, but knowledge too. Sure enough, Wang Dong treated him to a good meal for lunch. Once he'd finished his afternoon class, Tang San came over to him, let's go, little Yuhao. I've prepared everything for you once again. Don't worry, Teacher Xiao will stay by your side and protect you today. Let's see what idiot dares to bully you with me around. Right, your eldest senior brother asked me to give this to you when I saw you. Eat it when you get back to your dorm room tonight. Teacher Xiao, have you thought about my issue? Wang Dong asked Tang Ya, a fervent expression on his face. Tang Ya giggled and replied, I talked to Bei Bei about it. Bei Bei said that, if you're able to obtain first place in the first freshman assessment, you'll be qualified to join our Tang sect. Fine, it's a deal. Wang Dong replied without any hesitation at all. The benefits for joining the Tang sect were simply too good. Hui Yuhao had just received 2 mysterious water pills in front of him. Although he knew that his talent was exceptional, and that he didn't have any use for the mysterious water pill, who knew whether or not the Tang sect had better things? However, the reason that he wanted to join the Tang sect wasn't due to its benefits. Hui Yuhao accepted the porcelain bottle, and put it into his 24 moonlit bridges, without asking any questions. Afterwards, he followed Tang Ya out of the academy. Hui Yuhao chuckled. I'll treat you. Wang Dong shook his head and said, how can I do that? Friends are friends, business is business. I don't need you to treat me, I can afford to buy them. As he spoke, he fished out a silver soul coin and forcefully shoved it into Hui Yuhao's hand. He originally thought that he was helping Hui Yuhao, but when the 3 of them walked through the academy's gates, Wang Dong realized that he'd actually taken advantage of Hui Yuhao. Tang Ya teasingly said, I couldn't tell that you were still so infatuated with her. What a pity that she doesn't even like you. Shu Sancha angrily said, Tang Ya, don't provoke me. Your Bei Bei swindled me yesterday, yet I haven't even tried to settle my debts with you guys. Tang Ya stuck her tongue out, then turned around and said to Hui Yuhao, little Yuhao, you should start now. Since someone gave you something good yesterday, you should sell him 2 roasted fish today. After setting his grill up, Hui Yuhao began to sell his roasted fish at the entrance to Shrek Academy for the second time. However, he didn't sell the first 2 roasted fish to Shu Sancha, as he didn't have a favorable opinion of this fellow who'd made a move against him yesterday. Furthermore, Wang Dong had paid him first. Hence, the first 2 fish he roasted went to Wang Dong. The third and fourth went to Tang Ya. Only when Shu Sanchi's expression had turned increasingly dark, did he receive the 5th and 6th roasted fish. He threw his money towards Hui Yuhao and left, delicious, this is really too delicious. Fish can actually be so fragrant. As Wang Dong ate, his eyes glowed. Whilst eating the roasted fish, his appearance became completely identical to Tang Ya's. By the time he'd finished his fish, both his face and hands were dripping with oil. The red-shirted woman's body moved a bit. She subconsciously covered her chest with her right hand and muttered, I'm too hot, it's too unbearable. I feel terrible, huh? She gradually opened her eyes, however her pupils were now faintly pink in color, the bloody color within her eyes had receded. There was also a trace of doubt in her eyes. That's strange, why isn't it hot anymore, you're awake? An aged voice rang out, before letting out a long sigh. Xiao Dao, you almost made a huge mistake this time. I don't know whether or not it was destiny, but an otherworldly ice-type energy surged into your body, jolting the evil fire within your body. Can you remember anything you saw after you charged out from Sea God Lake? This video will end here. Thank you for watching.